Hello. So a quick one today on buying a car. So these are the car buying rules that I would use and will use in the future. So firstly, I would say is cash is king. If you can pay for a car, then I would do. I'd pay for any depreciating asset that I could in cash. However, this is for people who are just joining the workforce or trying to improve their financial position. I would use the 19-4-50 rule. In terms of this, the 19 is the deposit. I would put down a 19% deposit because for the average UK car, it depreciates by an average of 19% in the first year, and most of this depreciation happens when you drive it off the lot for the very first time. So to stay ahead of that depreciation, I put down a 19% deposit. This also proves to yourself that you can save the money and therefore be able to make the payments. For the 4, I would be financing the car for no longer than 4 years, and then I would try and own the car for at least 4 years after this, where I've got no payments. This would allow me to divert those payments into stocks and shares ISA instead, in order to try and pay for a car in cash in the future. And then the 50, the car value should exceed no more than 50% of your take-home annual pay. This would mean with the payment at an interest rate which for an average car in the UK is 9.5%, the payment would be about 12% of your take-home pay, not including the total cost of ownership, which would be things like your insurance, MOT, new tyres, etc. Please remember for these that the 19% is a minimum and the 4 years and the 50% are maximums. I'd recommend paying cash again, as I said, for a depreciating asset. And I would basically do the 19% as high as you possibly could, and the other two as low as you possibly could, but these are my absolute maximums in order to give you some flexibility to try and get a car that is reliable and can get you to your primary income stream, which would be your job. In terms of what this would do, in the first year, after putting down 19% deposit and making the payments, you'd have paid off 37% of the car roughly, and it would have depreciated an average of 19%. So you'd have about an 18% equity position in the car in the first year already. After 2 years, you have 6% of the car paid off, and it would appreciate about 31%, so about a 25% equity stake in the car. After 3 years, you'd have paid off 77% of the car roughly, and it depreciated an average of 42%, so about 35% equity position. And then in the fourth year, you'd have a completely paid off car, and it would still be worth about 49% of what you paid for it. So as you go along, your equity position stays positive and just gets better and better. I would also have 2 kind of honesty guardrails. The first one would be that I'd want to be investing more than I'm paying on my car every month in terms of payments for your workplace pension, SIP, lifetime ISAs. You want all of them to be more than you're putting into your car. You want to be building wealth instead of just driving it around. The second thing I would be as well is I wouldn't want this to be your largest monthly expense. So I wouldn't want to be paying more for my car each month than I'm paying for my housing, be that a rent or a mortgage. The other major thing is potential for overpayments. Generally speaking, it's limitless in terms of the amount you can overpay on a car, which is different from mortgages, which is why I took out a 5-year finance and paid it off in about 8 months of my position. In terms of overpayments, generally speaking, people talk about the fact that once you take into account depreciation and the total cost of owning the car, it's not as beneficial to overpay the mortgage. However, in my opinion, whether you pay off the debt or not, the other things of owning the car are still going to occur. i.e. paying off this debt isn't going to stop you needing new tyres or having to get an MOT every year. So I think you can look at the debt in isolation. And in my opinion, as long as you are making your pension contributions and don't have any other high interest debts such as credit cards, buy now pay later, or payday loans, I would consider paying this off anything above 6%, as 6% or higher is something I'd start to consider potentially as higher interest debt. So to summarize, I put down at least a 19% deposit to stay ahead of depreciation. And again, in order to stave off depreciation, and keep my equity position, I would only finance the car for a maximum of 4 years, and I would only get a car that was no more than 50% of my take-home pay. Again, this is take-home pay, not gross. In terms of this, I'd then consider potentially overpaying for peace of mind and freeing up future paychecks, but there are other things I would consider first, such as higher interest debt, as I mentioned, or my pension contributions. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you have any other questions, please let me know.